Welcome to Breaking Dogma, where we tear down outdated beliefs and force real conversations about what actually works. I'm your host, James Partsch, and today's episode takes aim at one of the most entrenched institutions in American life, retirement. The way we talk about it, plan for it, and even define it is just broken, but there's always a better way. Our guest today is Russ Gaiser. He's a retirement income specialist, best-selling author of Beyond Breakeven, and someone who's helping people rethink their future before it's too late. Russ, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So Russ isn't just a guest. He's also someone I respect as a professional who walked away from convention and built something real, which I'm really looking forward to diving into with you. But, you know, what I really want to start with, my whole thought or premise of this episode, what I've been thinking about is you don't need to be rich to retire well. In a day that we all talk about fire, and I'm sure we'll jump into that, but you just need to think differently. And something that really struck me in the difference of, at least one of the differences you take an approach, is Social Security, which I don't ever think about. But when we do think about it, it's a safety net. It's just something we hope will be there. But you guys really helped me understand that it's more of a strategic asset. So I wanna dive into that. Awesome. So if you could just real quick give us an idea of what led you to writing Beyond Breakeven.
Oh, it's funny. Let me just touch on what you just said. Like, you know, we just hope it'll be there. I just met with someone, a prospective client the other day, and he goes, he's in his early 60s, and now he's sitting here consulting with me about, you know, how to put all these puzzle pieces together for his retirement income plan. He goes, I was told as a kid this would never be here, and now here I am, and it's a critical piece. We often call it the cornerstone of someone's retirement income plan. What really drove us, Mike Hayflick, my partner, and I, to write the book is really because I think traditionally Social Security is often thought of as a break even, right? It's an emotional decision. I don't know if it'll be there, right? I don't know how long I'm going to live, so I want to make sure I get as much as I possibly can out of it. And hopefully then, you know, if I live too long, well, then I know, you know, I would have gotten all that money out. So breaking even is simply, if you claim at 62, right, how long do you need to live or if you claim at 70 or after 62, I should say, how long do you need to live to basically make it worth your while to recoup all the money that you gave up while you deferred claiming it, essentially? And there's just way more to the puzzle than just that, right? It's likely your largest guaranteed retirement income source for most people. I mean, unless you're a federal employee and you have a pension, state employees with pensions. But pensions, as we talked about a little earlier, you know, are far and few between, mainly because, the 401k plan has taken over. And that was really for employers to push the risk of retirement income onto the employee and off of themselves. It just became too costly to do that. So the whole idea of the book was to take it. It's really a paradigm shift. We're breaking dogma in our industry, essentially, of, hey, not when do you want to take it, when do you feel like you should, but having it be and treat it like the importance of, hey, this puzzle piece that we need to make sure it's in sync with all of your other assets, all the other saving that you've been doing, because there's way more to the benefit than just simply, you know, how long do I think I'll live and can I get all the money out of the system I need to? Way more than an emotional decision that can really crush your retirement if you don't do it. Plan for it properly.
So to make sure I understand this right, breaking even, at least in my mind, so 62 years old, I can claim. Let's say I can claim $20,000 a year. But if I wait 7 years till I'm 69, to me, in my mind, I'm giving up about $140,000 of claiming.
Right.
So that is about $12,000 a year. So if I'm getting an extra $1,000 a month or $12,000 a year at 69, then I would need to live at least 7 years longer to fully make up for the money that I had set.
That's exactly right.
Even. Okay.
Yep, you got it.
That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yep. And that's where all the engineers come to us with their spreadsheets and which is good. Like we want you to understand what you're doing, but again, it goes far beyond that.
That's good to know. Yeah. So before we jump further into the book, just a little background on yourself. How did you went from the military, and what was your journey from that into getting into finance? Like, what led you to this industry, this field?
Yeah, that's an interesting change, isn't it? So I was pretty much in the healthcare space my entire life. Even before the military, I was a certified nursing assistant. Joined the military to pay for college and those types of things, and to maybe travel, although never traveled anywhere but San Antonio, really, which there's worse places to be, I guess. And I was a surgery tech in the Air Force, and I was specialty trained in urology. Then I got into healthcare management. That's what my degrees were in. I had a bachelor's and a master's in that space. Left active duty after about 9 years of service. Continued on as a health administrator, working for various organizations, and then right during COVID, working in healthcare during COVID was a pretty stressful time. But in business school, when I was getting my MBA, I actually took an elective on financial planning and investment planning, and I go, man, I really like this. Like it's giving me energy, and I've learned like through my life, I like to do things that give me energy, not drain my energy. And so I had talked with my wife about, hey, I think I might want to make a career change, just based off that one course. And I reached out to a colleague of mine, now a colleague of mine, and basically asked, like, what do I need to do to get into the industry? So from there, I got my licensing exams while I was still working full time in healthcare. And then we got to a point where I just said, look, I'm just going to go and dive in full time. Then, of course, all the education, all the practice, getting in front of hundreds and probably now thousands of people. And then really getting into the retirement income planning space. Because once you go into financial planning, it's such a broad category. And the types of people I was seeing were really getting ready to retire. And I knew how to help them, but it always came down to, hey, Russ, when should we claim our Social Security benefits? And as I would sit there and really think about it, I didn't really have really good answers other than breaking even and maybe, when do you think you should claim it and those things. I didn't know the intricacies. And as a fiduciary, I feel obligated to not just pass that off to Social Security Administration. Someone's earned that their whole working life. I feel like a bigger obligation to make sure I'm doing the right thing. So that's when I got certified in Social Security claiming strategies on top of being a certified financial planner. And that gave me the tools to really be able to effectively integrate that advice holistically with their overall financial plan and retirement income plan. So that's kind of the where I started militarily in healthcare all the way to where I am now. So, and I don't feel like I work a day in my life now, which is like,
it's everybody's dream.
It's amazing. Yeah, for sure.
What made you realize, or what made you think that the systems that were at least in place in the way you were seeing them or the way people understood them set them up to fail?
Well, number one, the system of Social Security income, even the Social Security Administration can't give advice around the subject, which is goofy, right? You would think, my God, if anyone could give advice on Social Security claiming, it would be them. But really, in their operations manual, they're told not to persuade claimants into giving advice, right? So even the Social Security Administration doesn't give advice. They don't always give correct information anyways, because maybe they misunderstand what someone's asking, or the person doesn't know how to ask the right question. And in our field, in financial planning and financial advising, like, think about it. Oftentimes in our industry, we're paid to manage money, fee-based. Okay. And the more we manage, right, the more we make. And, of course, we want to do well for clients because then they perform better as well. And, it can be very hard to have someone draw down their retirement assets while they wait for Social Security to grow, if that is indeed the right decision for them. Right. And oftentimes it's, I don't know, when do you want to claim? Because the information about how the system works is so lacking. And that's not any one financial planner's fault. It's just that it's not taken seriously enough, I don't think. And even by the own Social Security Administration, so.
What do you believe, or what have you discovered is the number one misconception that people have when they first sit down with you or they first meet you at one of your conferences or events?
I don't know that it's so much a misconception as it is like, what are they trying to sell us? And it's funny because Mike and I approach everything we do with hearts of teachers, and we really just want people to be educated. And I think maybe a misconception would be like there's a one size fits all approach for people, and there's really not. Because ultimately what it comes down to is, what is that individual actually trying to accomplish? Like, what is their income goal? How long do they want their plan to last? Are they married? What are their what is their situation? Do they care about legacy? Is tax efficiency a goal of theirs? And based on their different parameters, what is their probability of success they want for their plan to work? Some people are gamblers, like, hey, we want a coin flip. I mean, it's rare usually, with the people we encounter, but some want 99%. They want it. We want this thing to work. So we kind of meet people where they are, I think, is what surprises people. They always are waiting for us to sell something, but really what we sell, so to speak, is a true evaluation of where they're at, evaluating where they thought they might claim or what they thought their plan was. And what we find often is people actually have advisors they work with, but they either don't have a detailed retirement income plan. And if they do, they almost certainly never have a retirement income plan that evaluates when they should be claiming Social Security benefits and what the impact is. They almost never do. And they almost never know what the plan success is. It's just very vague and very general, the advice that they get. And so there is a big discrepancy in our field. Like if you're just having wealth managed, a lot of times you don't even have a financial plan, right? And that is the most important thing. No matter what age you are, if you're just out of college getting started and you're under a mountain of debt, you should have a financial plan. If you're just getting ready to retire, you should have a financial plan. If you're somewhere in the middle and you're a mid to late accumulator, you should have a financial plan. Because you can Google anything you want, you can talk to anybody you want who knows nothing about you and your situation, and they're going to give you information. But how does it actually apply to you? And everyone has different goals, right? I can't tell you how you want to live, So it's important that you seek the right advice, the right questions are asked, and then the right decisions can be applied.
So people think retirement starts at 65, but what I'm hearing is runway really starts in your 20s. It starts in your 30s, or you're already behind.
I have a client of mine who said, Russ, I've been planning my retirement since I was in high school. And, and he's like, I was born to retire. And it's funny because most people aren't like that, right? You don't ever think you're going to get old until you start getting older. And then you're like, my gosh, I feel like I'm behind. It starts as early as you can possibly fathom. And even in school, and I think we do a bad job, schools do a bad job just by not giving financial information to kids, right? Many kids nowadays don't know how to write checks. They don't know what a budget is, like spending less than you make, how to invest, what investing even is. It's not day trading. It's not gambling. It's having a plan and sticking to it and really understanding. So, it's never too early. It's probably never too late to start. If you're 50 or 55, there's catch-up contributions. Like you can get really serious. Matter of fact, I met with a guy recently, and he was the stay-at-home dad for many years. He ended up getting divorced, sadly, and he had no savings in retirement. His Social Security benefit was really low because he was out of the workforce. It's your top 35 years of earnings. And he raised his two girls. They were now grown, and he basically started over at 50. And now he's, worth over $1 million because he knew what to do and he took it really serious. He spent less than he made. He saved and invested, and he had to do it in a really short amount of time. Now his retirement's going to be great, but it's not usually never too late.
I think that's when you talk about school too, I mean, we hear it all the time. They don't even teach us about credit. They don't teach us good debt, bad debt. And I know that's a whole nother topic, whole nother show we could do, but the opportunities in our parents, each generation is different in what the market looks like and what debt looks like. So it's very difficult for all of our parents to give us the information that they may not have experienced what we're going through today.
Look at mortgage rates like our parents when they grew up, like when they were buying a house maybe in the late 70s, early 80s, you're talking 12, 18, 20% mortgages. And now you're at 5, people are screaming, because they were at like 2.
So just to make sure I'm getting this here, you're saying someone in their 30s, when we talk, we're going to get further into Social Security, but that's a large part of the entire retirement planning. So is it fair to say that somebody in their 20s and 30s, although they're not going to be claiming for another 30 plus years, should care about Social Security now, even though it's decades away? Or at least understand the nuances of it?
Definitely understanding the nuances of it. I'm a big believer in you want to control your destiny. You don't want to depend on a government necessarily to provide your security in retirement. Like you're in control of your own house. But the bottom line is you're paying into it, right? It's not just something the government's giving you. It's your money. Okay. You should definitely know how it works because it is your money. Right. And just the notion of it not being there. I mean, Congress has always acted historically. I tell this in workshops to people. Congress has always acted historically. They moved the full retirement age down. It was 65, then it was 66, then it was 66 and 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 months. Now it's 67. For my kids, it'll probably be later. Right?
Is that because we're getting healthier and living longer, or does that reiterate some of the fear people have about Social Security's running out?
Well, that's
make it longer.
To your point. Yes, people are living longer than they did when 1935, when the system was started. Like, people died in their late 60s, it seemed. So that's part of it. The trust fund running out, and Social Security is funded by the trust fund, but 80% of it is paid by payroll taxes. Okay. So in 2033, that's when they're projecting the trust fund to run out if they did nothing. Like I said, historically, Congress has acted. And there's some low-hanging fruit to make the benefit solvent for another 60 to 70 years. Certain actuaries have done studies on this. And that's simply uncapping the FICA tax for Social Security. FICA taxes are your payroll taxes that you pay for Medicare and Social Security. Well, if you make over, I think this year it's 176,100. Check me on that, but it's somewhere around there. And every dollar you make over that, you're done paying into Social Security. So if you uncap that, it's funded fully as it is now, just doing that one thing, right? So low-hanging fruit, they might do a mix of things, right, and different phase-outs, but there's ways to fix it. It's just going to be this fear thing going, because fear sells, as you know, for the next decade. Unfortunately, it's for the people who are about getting ready to retire, making them nervous. But if you know these things, you're one step closer to not making an emotional decision about it. Because I tell people this, like, if you're worried, if you are in the camp, you think only 80% of the benefit will be payable when you're ready, would you rather have 80% of less or 80% of more?
I also, at the risk of bleeding into some people's political beliefs, and we're going to stay out of politics, but we always hear tax the rich, and it's a nice soundbite for news. It generates a lot of buzz, but we don't understand the nuances, and nobody's educating us. Just what you had said, as simple as uncapping it, which I had no idea. If I make more than that amount of money, I'm not paying into Social Security anymore. Mm-hmm. I would have no concern if I made more than that to pay into Social Security to make sure it's there, because even making over that amount of money, it's still an asset I have in my future to plan for.
Right.
And I'm sure we'll get into how big of an asset that is. So this goes back to just being properly educated. Like, it's sound bites are great. Headlines are made to get you to read the subhead. Subheads are made to get you to read the body. But too often, all we do is repeat the headline. We never want to get into the meat and potatoes or educate ourselves.
And the headlines are often fear-based, because fear is an emotion, probably the most powerful emotion, one of the most, anyways. And it gets people to feel a certain way and act.
Yeah.
And that's your point.
One. Yeah. And thank you and all of our servicemen and women for their service to the country. That's huge. Okay, so just kind of moving on. Why do you think the traditional, and you said you even did this early in your career with finance when we talk about Social Security, but why is that traditional break-even mindset broken? Like, what is it about that you guys get beyond when you go into your book?
Well, I think it's just because there's way more to the benefit than just that, especially for married couples. Social Security is it's again, we call it a cornerstone of the retirement income plan, because it's likely your biggest source of guaranteed inflation or cost of living adjusted tax efficient income that you'll have. That's guaranteed, right? A lot of people don't know that when you're married, the higher of the two benefits will stay in the household. When one spouse passes away, the other one's gone, right? We have to stop looking at it in a silo. We have to look at it as a holistic plan, and often over 2 lives, right? So that's just some of it. Tax efficiency, either none of it's taxed or up to 85% of it is taxed. And that's based on the provisional income formula and a whole bunch of goofy rules. I don't make the rules. I just have to understand what they are.
What do you say to somebody who says, I'm divorced? I don't have the 2-person thing.
Well, someone who's divorced has different options potentially too, because there's spousal benefits for divorced folks. There's even, they call it survivor benefits for people who have been divorced. So if you're married longer than 10 years, there's some other minor parameters, but let's just say you got divorced and your ex, let's say you're the lower earning spouse, right? In the example I gave earlier, maybe, and the spouse was the breadwinner, got divorced, you're married longer than 10 years, and you find out they passed away. Well, you're actually eligible for their full benefit. Okay. And there's a thing called deemed filing, where if you file for benefits traditionally, you have any other benefit that's available through Social Security, benefits for your kids, for spouses if you're currently married and things, you automatically get them when you file. Essentially, like you're deeming you're filing for all the benefits available to you. The only time where you can claim a benefit and not get all the benefits available to you is in this situation where you're claiming a deceased spouse or ex-spouse, because you can still claim your own benefit and let the other one grow and switch to it, or vice versa. Like you could claim theirs and then switch to your own at 70, right? If the numbers make sense. So there's switching strategies that are available. I'll give you an example on that. I met with a woman, it's probably about a year ago now. She's now a client. And she came to me because she said, look, Russ, I just need to figure out, she's 67 and she wants to work till she's 70. And that's her full retirement age. And at your full retirement age, you can claim Social Security and earn as much as you want without reductions. So she just said, I know I'm 67 or I'm approaching that. So I want to know, like, should I claim or should I wait? And as through this discovery phase, I'm chatting with her. I found out she's divorced. She raised her kids on her own and worked, right? I found out she was married for 11 years. She was divorced in the 80s. Her ex had recently died. She was never remarried. And so I'm learning this. I go, you have a benefit available to you. I don't know what the numbers are, but you need to go to Social Security and say, hey, I have reason to believe my ex-spouse has passed away, and I believe I'm entitled to his benefit. What are the numbers? And Social Security will give you a printout of their benefit, your benefit, stack the numbers together. And it turns out she was eligible for his. Her benefit was higher because he was like he was a veteran as well and things, and ended up becoming disabled. She was able to retroactively claim his benefit for 6 months and get a lump sum payment, and then monthly payments of his benefit while she let hers grow till 70, and she was working till 70 anyways, and then switched to her own at 70. I found her almost $60,000 of income she would have never known that she was eligible for. And the coolest part about that was not only was she grateful about that, the government's not sending you a letter saying, hey, you got 60 grand you need to come and get. They're not doing that. But she really didn't need the money. So she was able to actually bless her grandkids with that money or her children really and the grandkids as a legacy from their dad who passed away, which that's so cool. Like she would have never known.
So this is blowing my mind. Before I get into why, if either of them remarried, does that change that, or does it just get too nuanced?
For in a situation where that person had passed away, if they get remarried before age 60, they can't claim the ex who passed away.
Okay.
But if they get remarried at age 6, after age 60, that still is available to them to claim.
What if the ex got remarried?
It doesn't matter. It matters for the person of which who is claiming the benefit. So if that ex got remarried and died, it doesn't matter.
Could both of their?
Yes.
Wow.
They could be both entitled to that benefit.
So this is just blowing my mind because I could get married at 25 years old, be married till I'm 40, divorced. 27 years later, haven't even thought about this person outside. We have beautiful family. We have children together, so we're probably amicable. They pass away, and there's potential claims of income that how many people even know about this? Probably not enough.
I don't think many.
Wow. Okay. That just blows my mind. Like that is something I would have never thought is out there, but this goes to show how
That's
nuanced
the most
it can
misunderstood part of the benefit, I think. I can think of 3 people off the top of my head, clients of mine that we've dealt with this.
Wow.
Yep. And actually, even more so, if you have a spouse you were married to who passed away and you meet all those parameters, you can claim they call it a widower benefit. You can claim it as early as age 60. Okay.
Well, you're letting your Social Security grow in value.
Yep.
Okay.
And now you are subject, no matter when you claim a benefit, prior to your full retirement age, to what's called the earnings limit test. And that's really only gross W-2 wages and like your net profit from self-employment. Okay. So after your expenses. And in 2025, that's $23,400. So for every $2 that you earn in those 2 methods I just told you above that threshold, they reduce your benefit by $1. But it's not like if you're in that situation that they just take $1 from your check. They withhold full months of payment. So if you're over $2, you lose a month of your benefit for that year.
Wow.
So that's a big cash flow problem if you don't know about that. But the reason I brought it up here is because if you're thinking about filing at 60 on that ex-widow, the ex-spouse who passed away, you're subject to that test. But maybe you're ready to retire. Maybe you're ready to go per diem, maybe, like if you're a nurse or something. We have a lot of nurses as clients.
So it doesn't matter how much money I made in that 30 or 35 years. It matters how much money I'm making right then and there.
Yeah, the earnings limit test, actually, if you file for a benefit, let's just say it's this month, okay? Let's just say you're 62. You're filing on your own benefit. Everything you made up until today doesn't count towards the earnings test. Wow. But if you file in midway through a year like that, then you're subject to the monthly cap of that $23,400, which is $1,950 per month. You have to stay under that the rest of the year per month. Then the next calendar year, now you can earn $23,400. Well, it usually goes up every year, but let's just say it's $23,400. You could earn that all in January and then not work again the rest of the year.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think about a lot of people later in life get into more fractional work, whether it's real estate investing or it's consulting or it's advising.
Oh, well,
money.
Not to interrupt you, but real estate investing, as long as you're not actively paying yourself wages from being a part of it, just the passive income doesn't count towards that.
The revenue doesn't count then as income.
Nope.
Wow.
Nope. So passive income investments, even pensions, IRA withdrawals don't count. It's gross W-2 wages, net profit from self-employment income.
So like 1099 contractor W-2 type stuff.
Yeah. And you can't say, okay, I'm a W-2 employee and I'm going to defer $23,000 this year into my 401k. No, it's gross. So if you ever noticed on your W-2, there's the little boxes, gross wages, and that's after you've deferred or paid health premiums. But then there's a Social Security earnings box and a Medicare earnings box. How those are bigger numbers. Those are the numbers they use.
Gross salary always bothered me because it's gross at how much it looks and then how little you actually bring home.
Yeah.
So I always said that's why they called it gross.
Ooh.
So going back to just that my mind is blown about that, but that's awesome. So going back to that break-even mindset, before you guys dove into the book, before you started educating people, why does the initial concept, what we talked about at the beginning of the episode, when I said 62 years old, I could claim today, or I can defer for 7 years. I'm losing 140 grand in my mind, so I need to live another 10 years to get that back. I don't know about my health. Why does that fall apart in the real world, and why do people keep using it? Is it a simplicity thing? Is it uneducated? Are other people perpetuating this? Like, what is it?
I think it's because they don't really understand the true risks involved with retirement income.
Okay.
A couple different things stand out to me when you ask this question. And the first is, well, I've been saving into a 401k for 30 years, deferring in there, and I've been very aggressive in my 401k plan in the markets, and I've averaged 8% a year, let's say. Done very well, compounded growth, 8% a year. Now, while I was working, I didn't care which years were minus 20% or up 40 or whatever, the sequence of returns. I only cared about the average. And by the way, I was also dollar cost averaging into the market, which is great when the market's down 20%.
Which, can you just explain that real quick for anybody listening who might not understand dollar cost averaging?
So dollar cost averaging essentially means, again, we can't time the market no matter what, right? So it's always about time in, but when you're putting money in consistently, so let's just say you get paid weekly and you're putting money into the market weekly, if you own the S&P 500 index, let's just say, it's very vanilla, but most people know what that is. It's one of the most common stock benchmarks. And if you're putting money in every week, you're buying the S&P 500 when it's down 10% that week. So you buy more shares, but you're also buying when it might be up for that year, 30%. Oh, we're talking weekly. So let's just say up, whatever it might be. Like, perfect example would be when we had the more recently, this volatility with what's going on with tariffs, right? Yep. The market was down 10% in one day. If that happened to be the day that you put money in from your check, great. You got the market on sale. You bought a lot more shares. And then the next week it was up 10%. And so you paid more for the shares you bought, but it's an average over time, essentially.
Okay.
Is what I'm getting at. Okay. And so you do really well, and you kind of magnify, or you lessen the losses, if that makes sense, when you're still putting money in, even when the values come down. You don't notice them as much. And one of the biggest risks in retirement, we call it the distribution phase. In the book, we call it the spend it phase, save it and then spend it years. And the spend it years, now we really do care about what we call sequence of returns and the risk of sequence of returns risk. And all that really means is we no longer care about averages. And it's kind of it's a phenomenon we call dollar cost ravaging. If let's just pretend you're in the S&P 500 and make this easy. If that year you're pulling money out and it's down 20%, you have to liquidate way more shares to get the same dollar value than you would in a year where it's up 20. And so we don't know year to year over your retirement how the market will sequence. It could average 8% a year over your retirement, but if it sequences negative first or negative heavily over a long period of time or however it could, and we have ways to kind of assign a risk to this, you could be way underfunded for retirement for the goals and objectives that you have. So people don't look at that. And the Social Security claiming decision can help avoid or lessen the impact of the market risk. Longevity, taxes, and inflation are your three biggest risks in retirement. It's longevity gives you more market risk, especially if you have more of your income that needs to come from the markets. I call it variable income, right? It's not guaranteed to go up. The market doesn't go average 8% a year, right? Like I just talked about. It's not guaranteed. So it lowers the certainty, or it can. And so you really have to evaluate those risks. And if a claiming decision for Social Security, maybe you spend down some of your wealth that's in the markets and you let Social Security grow. And so then for most of your retirement, you've shrunk the gap of how much has to come out of the market. You've dramatically increased your probability of success. It has nothing to do with how much you're getting out of the system or when you die or anything like that. It has to do with you not panicking when you see the market down 40% while you're retired, or even 10% for that matter.
Is a way to hedge against that, and this is going to show my ignorance on the topic, is market's up 30% this year. It's crazy. That never happened. So I'm going to pull money out for the next 2 years. That way, if it drops 30% because of something unforeseen, I don't have to draw anything out. Or is that more draw monthly, so you kind of dollar cost average in the reverse? So you might pull in a low month, but you might pull in a high month. Like or is it situational, and you address that with people when they're looking at that stage of their life?
We do address that, and we like to break it down when we use different terms. And so when we're looking at the holistic retirement income plan, I'm looking at how much wealth of what you've saved do you need over your period of time you're trying to draw your income for, and how much you need at whatever desired probability of success that might be, and then the nuances of how we invest that and where we draw from, like certain buckets we would call them. We do that, but we also like to identify how much of their portfolio is truly excess capital, meaning they don't need it for their income goals. So now we can pivot and we can say, look, you can be in 100% growth stocks with your excess capital and just let it rip. You never have to pull that money out while your income's taken care of. And years where the market's way up, you can siphon off the growth off of that and do whatever you want, right? And you're never touching that. So it actually allows you to be more aggressive with your portfolio, right? If you have the income solved for. So yes, part of the answer to your question is yes. That looks different depending on scenario based. But when we talk about safe withdrawal rates and Monte Carlo and things like that, Bill Bangen is the guy who did the research on the 4% safe withdrawal rule. It's the number he came across when he researched 50 years of markets, and at 80% probability of success and a 50-50 stock to bond portfolio, what was the safe percent he could withdraw every year, inflation adjusted? And that was 4%. It doesn't include fees though, so it's like a gross number. Okay. And that percentage can change depending. And for 30 years, the length of the retirement period, it can change on if you want greater than an 80% chance of success. It's not really that great, honestly.
No,
80.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, that's 20% that
you might want 90. Most people seem comfortable at 90, but some want 99, some want 95. So the higher the probability of success, the lower your safe withdrawal rate numbers are going to be. Okay. And stock to bond, some people want to be more aggressive, some more conservative. So that factors in how the markets, when we run 1,000 trials of market history for 100 years on how you want to be invested, we know like, hey, you need this amount of capital to be able to solve that income goal no matter what the markets do over your retirement period. right? So it might be, yeah, we're siphoning gains when we have them, but we might be just not spending them necessarily, but protecting them, maybe making them a bit more conservative, perhaps. It just really depends on the situation.
So what do you say to a 30 or 40-year-old that's just never considered Social Security as part of a plan?
I'd say to them that you want to definitely know about it. And I see people like this all the time, referrals from clients. I'm often meeting their kids. And I'll just go out of my way just to, because everyone, it's funny, everyone that meets with me, you probably have witnessed this too. We sit down together. I'm literally walking through my process, the process, and educating you. Like, part of my conversation is cash flow. Where's your money coming from when you retire? Social Security is that first bucket I always talk about. And so someone as young as you, I'm basically saying, look, it's going to be a while, but here's how you pay into it. Here's your full retirement age. Here's how it works. It's your top 35 years of earnings. Oh, how do you earn? Are you a W-2 employee? Are you self-employed? Here's the number that they actually use. You should actually log into SSA.gov to make sure the reporting is correct. Because if you have zeros, that can really hurt your benefit.
And do they pull that like from my, if I am an independent, if I'm an entrepreneur, do they pull that from my tax returns?
Yeah, the IRS.
Okay, the IRS. Okay.
Yeah, the IRS. They true up with the IRS.
So is it fair to say then Social Security, it's not just a safety net, which is what my mentality was, but it's a strategic asset that if you realize you have it, you can change at least in your 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s, what your investment strategy is, knowing that there is something else to augment later in life. Because I don't think I ever consider Social Security unless I'm sitting down talking with a professional.
Right. Well, yeah. And the thing is, safety net, it was never intended to be the only source of income in retirement. That's why people go scoff at it. Oh, it's not that big. The benefit can be pretty big. I believe the maximum benefit at full retirement age for 67 is just under $4,000 a month, which is 24%. You can grow that benefit, I'll call it $4,000, another 24% at a minimum if you wait till 70. That's a significant benefit. If you're talking almost $60,000 a year in one person's Social Security income at 70, right? At the max, if you're nearing $5,000 a month, that's then cost of living adjusted throughout retirement. That's a pretty significant income stream.
Especially when you look at, and I don't know the numbers exactly, but I'm pretty sure it's around $42,000 for a family of two is considered the poverty line, at least in upstate or Western New York. So you're at that and substantially higher than that, where some people are working full-time jobs and can't even meet that.
You could be.
Wow.
And again, that's for the highest earners who've been maxing it out. But again, and if they didn't do as good of a job saving, or maybe they just enjoyed living and they, I think the sweet spot for someone who's really wanting to take this super seriously because it can corrupt their plan is someone probably with a net, liquid assets in their 401k or what they've saved between maybe 400,000 to 3 million or so.
Wow.
Because there's a point in time where you just have so much wealth to where even if you make an emotional decision with Social Security, you're just not going to run out of money. It might not be the best use of your wealth, because the paradigm shift here with this is when do I claim Social Security to where I use the least amount of my own money?
Yes.
Which then what? Allows you to use your own money for whatever you want.
Becomes much more discretionary.
Yeah.
And hopefully at that point in your life, and it's all of us won't get there, but it is a goal, is not having a car loan, not having a mortgage.
For sure.
And that, because people hear 4,000 and they're like, I struggle with that today. There's people making less who are struggling, but when you don't have that other debt, it's amazing how much lower your
for sure
monthly needs are.
The cost, we like to, Mike and I refer to retirement as like, what's the cost? We don't mean fees or anything. We mean, what's the retirement period? How much on a inflation adjusted basis do you need every year for that period to meet your goals? That's a number, whatever that number is.
So back to your financial planning, like you said, it's the most important thing.
Yeah, what's that number, and how do we use Social Security to drive that number down, essentially? So I look at it this way. 3 houses on a beach, all identical views, identical everything. Just pretend they're all the same.
Right next door to each other.
Right
Let's put them even in the same location.
They're all on sale. One's $1 million, one's $750,000, one's $500,000. Which one are you buying?
$750 all day. I'm buying the 500,000,
Right.
or I'm going to buy the million and the 500,000, resell the 500,000 because I upped it. No, I'm joking.
You are a smart guy. So
No, I'm going 500,000 all day long.
Exactly, because they're all the same. They're not giving up anything. There's no decision to be made. And so that's exactly how we want to view retirement and how to claim your benefits. It's what is the cost? What's the less cost? Because if you're only committing 500 grand, everything else, you have what you want. Now, what else do you want to do? Do we want to pivot to tax efficient strategies now? Do we want to pivot to legacy, charitable donations, things like that? There's so much more then to the plan. It's really devising the income plan first and then figuring out, we call it pivoting, what's next, right? Many people have sorely lacking estate plans. Like they don't know what they don't know.
I mean, not having children, I know my estate plan is lacking substantially. We know what we would wish to happen, but we have not planned that out. And most people I know, even with children, do not have any plan because we take life for granted.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So those conversations then pivot from there.
Okay. Just moving on to some things here too is you talk about 5 pillars in the book. Can you walk us through what those pillars are and what the importance of them are?
Sure. So timing. Mm-hmm. So for timing, I guess I can overview all of them. So.
Yeah, timing, taxation, coordination, longevity, and legacy, which you've touched on a lot of those words even in our conversation to this point.
Yeah, so like what do I think about when I'm thinking about these? It's a own dedicated chapter in the book. Timing, of course, is like that's all around when am I claiming and like what are the considerations around that? I think we talked about survivor benefits, right? So we have to consider, and a lot of people that we meet, couples, they don't really think about the whole plan together. Really, when we're claiming and the timing of the decision is we have to look at both lives. I don't care when Mr. or Mrs. is passing away. The chances of one of you living out these 30 years is really probably pretty high. And again, that's different for everyone. Some people have longevity, though. If you're already in your 60s, the chances of you living into your late 80s, even 90s, goes up substantially, right? Because when you look at life expectancy in the high 70s, that includes infant mortality.
That's crazy.
So that you're past all that, right? So, and then how is your current health and all those things? So only you, the client, can really define that. But you have to look at that and understand, like, hey, there are risks if we both filed early to the survivor. What does the survivor benefit income look like? So that's a big one with timing. And also remember taxes, longevity, inflation. Social Security benefits are cost of living adjusted. Since they were legislated, the COLA increases in, I think, 1975. The average COLA per year is 3.75% per year. That's often diminished in the news. Oh, yeah, I got a raise, but it wasn't enough. Well, most pensions don't get cost of living adjustments. So the fact that this is getting that, and by the way, the last 100 years of inflation, it's right around that 3.1% per year. So, I mean, no other benefit's getting that guaranteed increase, right? So you have to think about that too. And the bigger the benefit, you lock in that bigger COLA increase every year. So that's the timing component that someone would want to consider. I think in terms, one other thing on that too, it could matter as well. A lot of people have saved tax deferred money into just traditional 401k plans. And they have this situation, what we would refer to as like the tax time bomb, right? So like maybe they have at age 75 required minimum distributions that are going to way surpass what they're going to need in income potentially. And how can we pivot around that? How can we lessen their overall lifetime tax burden? And that might actually be spending some of that down and deferring Social Security. It might be spending some down, converting some to Roth, and still deferring Social Security. There's different things there with that.
Is it fair to say there's a common misconception with 401k that it's pre-tax money? So when I go to get it, I'm exempt from the taxes. But are you taxed on the gains that you make from it?
No. So for a traditional 401k, traditional IRA, traditional 403b, 457 deferred comp, TSP, right? If you're for military and government folks out there, a traditional plan like that, when you put money in, you're not taxed on it. Like it reduces your tax that year. Yep. The money grows tax deferred. Every dollar that comes out though is taxable as income.
Okay.
All right. And if you live in New York, There's state income taxes, although the first 20,000 of IRA income is not taxable in New York. Okay, for retirees. Every dollar federally, though, is, of course. And then if you don't need the money, they force you to pull it out at age 75 for those born after 1960. That's what's on the books right now.
Which is where your tax bomb comes in.
Yes. Now, and that's calculated by, what's called your required beginning date is the year that you attain your required minimum distribution age, so age 75. So the market value of all of your IRAs, 401ks, like each one's calculated. The market, let's just pretend it's 1, just for the sake of simplicity. On December 31st of the year prior of your required beginning date, that's the number they use, they being the IRS. Then they divide your life expectancy into that. You might be wondering, what's my life expectancy then? It's what the IRS tells you. There's a table in the code. It's convenient. And it's about, they take you to basically age 100. So let's just say it's 25. So they divide 25 into the numerator there, which would be the ending value. Then that's how much you have to take out that year.
Wow.
And if you're aggressive and you're not touching that money otherwise, and it's compounding and compounding, and you're getting older and older, so your denominator is shrinking, that's going to be a bigger and bigger number every year. It's all taxable. Roth, on the other hand, no required minimum distribution. Oh, and by the way, back to traditional. Other than your spouse who inherits the traditional as if it's their own, if your kids get that money, they have to liquidate the whole account within 10 years. Every dollar is taxable to them. Okay. Now Roth, this is the difference between the two. Roth, all those other accounts I just listed, if Roth is in front of that, or sometimes they call it after-tax contributions, you pay the tax on your contributions that you put in. Okay. The money, like the traditionals, grows tax deferred. Except all the growth, as long as the account's been open for 5 years, is 100% tax-free.
Wow.
You can always access what you put in as well. Your basis, they call it. You can always access that penalty-free even before 59.5. So there's some more flexibility to it. But the biggest flexibility comes in, I'm never being forced to pull money out of the markets I don't want to. I'm never being forced to spend money or be taxed on money I don't want to. It's therefore tax-free. Your kids who inherit that money, tax-free to them. They still have to liquidate it within 10 years. But if they don't need it, they can let it grow another 10 years, compounding, and take it all out in the 10th year. So just a lot of flexibility there. So I'm a big proponent of Roth. Accountants go back and forth, tax people go back and forth about it. But when I'm holistically looking at someone's plan, I don't know. I just feel like if you look, this is the way I think about it, regardless of your age, even if you're older and you're like, I don't have much time for it to compound. If you don't need it, right, you're never forced to take it out. Think about legacy. Think about your children, right? Or if you're in a pinch and maybe you're in your 80s and you want to buy something big, you don't have to worry about how much tax you're paying. It's just there, right? So it's not, I call it tax diversification. Got your Roth, you got your traditional perhaps, right? Maybe some real estate, whatever.
Can everybody access Roth? Or are there limitations?
There are limitations for Roth IRAs. I can't remember the income phase outs on top of my head, but there are backdoor Roths you can do. So you can contribute to a non-deductible traditional IRA.
What do you mean income phase? Like if I make a certain amount of money, I might not be able to invest in a Roth?
That's right.
Okay.
I think for married couples, I have to check this. It's over 200,000 of modified adjusted gross income. So that's before standard deductions. And then there's a phase out limit and then to where you can't do it. But most workplace plans nowadays, 401ks, 403bs, have a Roth option. There is no earning limit there or income phase out.
Would it be fair to, I don't want to make a recommendation, this is not financial advice.
No.
But would it be fair to, a strategy might be take full advantage of your 401k match. But after that, because I used to always hear max out your 401k. But if I am under that whatever that threshold is, I want to get that match. But would it be more
it's free money
purposeful for me to go to? Yeah, free money. Take the free money, get that. But then should I be looking at a Roth instead of, hey, max out my 401k, and then only if I'm maxing it out, start looking at something else?
Well, good news if your employer, and I think most do now, offer Roth 401ks. You still get the match if you're doing a Roth 401k. Traditionally speaking, the match goes into the traditional component though. But the Secure Act 2.0 allows employers to choose to do the match via Roth instead.
Wow.
You got to pay the tax on it. I haven't seen that in practice yet, though, employers actually doing that, but that is an option. So it might not even be a problem in your scenario. But in the instance where the employer doesn't offer a Roth 401k, I'd say get the full match, right? Just put in up to the match. And then if you can contribute to a Roth IRA outside of that, do that.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm hearing this and I'm thinking of everybody I know in their 30s and 40s and even in their 50s. And like, you're talking to them, you're talking to me when you're saying these things that I had never really considered. So if we had to, so we went through the timing, taxation, even coordination, you touched on longevity and legacy. For those listening, if you had to give them just a minute on how they could rate themselves in these areas to know or be a little more educated when they come to you, Mike, or somebody like you, like how would you tell them, like, here's how you can rate yourself and identify some of your gaps so you can come to be prepared for the conversation?
Yeah, I think you want to pull your log into SSA.gov, make sure you have a statement that you can access to make sure your earnings records are correct. You have that. And then you can actually project out what your benefit would be if you put in your future earnings. You can even turn it to 0 and see, if I earn no more, what will my benefit be? So having that, how much money that you have actually already saved and invested and how it's invested in investment accounts. And it does matter if it's Roth or if it's traditional or if it's just a traditional, a brokerage account, maybe that's a non-retirement account. So just a thorough evaluation of that. How you actually like and want to live and what that will cost you. Super important. The likelihood that you can actually do that. Like if you could choose, like, hey, I want a certain probability of this actually working for my retirement period, and you want to know how long you want your retirement period to last. It's better to basically pretend you're going to live for 30 years or 20 years or whatever your retirement period is, not some freak accident will happen. Because when that freak accident doesn't happen and you made the wrong decision up front and now you've run out of money and you're elderly, that's like the worst possible scenario. You have the fear of living too long if you have bad planning. So just knowing your numbers at the very basic level, what you might still be contributing to those things, your beneficiaries, right? Make sure too, if you don't have any estate planning documents done, if you have beneficiaries assigned to accounts, that's the best thing you can do in the short term, because beneficiaries circumvent the will and all that.
And I don't think people understand how difficult it is to access a checking or savings account if they're not listed as somebody on that account and then they don't have a beneficiary.
Right, you have to go through probate.
Oh,
and that's the process. I wouldn't wish on anyone to have to endure. Can take it. I mean, at least in New York, it can take a year, longer than that. You have to deal with the courts. You got to take time off work. Like there's a lot of like emotional and relational issues that happen when a loved one passes on top of grieving.
Yeah.
They're passing, like all that stuff just adds to a burden. So you just get all that in order. If you work with a financial planner, like you're going through all of these things, to at least inventory and start talking about what your goals are. Because you can't really start planning until you know what the goals actually are. Like you have to understand yourself and where your situation is.
What do you say to the FIRE crowd, the financial independence, retire early? What do you say to those individuals, especially when we talk about 35 years of earning and things along those lines? Is there still a strategic asset here in Social Security? Are they potentially sacrificing that?
Well, if they're retiring early, that to me means they're not earning an income anymore, and therefore they're sacrificing their Social Security benefits because they don't have, I don't know how early is, but if it's maybe 40 years old, you have not contributed 35 years of earnings to Social Security. And you typically earn more as you get older. That's how it works. So yes, so you better make sure your plan's airtight. And to me though, like, what is retirement? To me, I tell people they're so scared to retire, even though they financially know, because it's different. It's like a huge shift from working and doing the same thing over and over. Sometimes people feel lost. It takes them a while. So retirement really just is the control, being able to do what you want with your time, right?
Yep.
And without financial constraints. I would tell you if you're retiring early at 40 or 30, you better hope you have enough wealth. And you really know the risks,
and you can weather the market. I mean, I joke all the time that retirement, to me, I will probably work more hours in retirement than I do today.
Right.
I will probably earn more, but the intent isn't earning at that point. The intent is just doing, like you said, you don't feel like you work a day in your life. I'll be doing things that are passion, that I find value in, that I'm giving back to others. So retirement to me is not, I'm done working.
Right.
I hear people say all the time, oh, if I were retired, I'd sit on the beach and have a Mai Tai. And I'm like, you can do that for a week?
Yeah.
That gets boring real quick. So what's your existence? Because if that's your existence, it's not going to last very long.
What's your purpose?
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in purpose. Like, we're here for a reason. That's just my own personal belief. And I feel like my calling is helping people, navigate retirement and helping them retire inspired. We partner with our clients and we take them to, but then through retirement, right? And that they can really rely on a plan that's going to work and they can live their lives.
Well, that's been your truth even since medical. You helped people physically. Now you're helping people financially,
right.
But you're still making sure that people can live as long as possible,
right,
in a meaningful way,
right.
So I have to ask though, right? So you guys, you break dogmas in your book, you push against some traditional norms. What advice do you think would get you and or Mike kicked out of a traditional advisory firm?
It's funny. I don't know that. So the approach we take wouldn't get us kicked out of a traditional advisory firm because I feel like other advisors are very receptive to it. Okay. But they just don't want to deal with it or they don't necessarily understand it. So I don't know that because we help people, we wouldn't be kicked out. I'm doing the right things for clients, right? I'm understanding their goals and objectives. I'm identifying where they are, right? I'm giving them my recommendations, but also possible alternatives if they have alternatives based on those goals and objectives that they could realistically do. Because quantitatively speaking, like we're diehards with what we teach, but if someone has an alternative that's realistic, even though maybe it results in less excess capital, and it's a more qualitative decision, then I support that because I know their plan will work still, right? So going through all those things, and then implementing the plan and then executing it and making sure that monitoring it thereafter, like I'm doing all those things. So I think any advisory firm would die to have me. And I'm not saying that because I believe in what I do. I know I'm helping people and I know I'm doing it the right way, the best way possible. So what I do wouldn't get me kicked out. However, I do think it challenges the norm. Like why would someone come to me over someone else in our same firm because I'm certified in this area? Well, it's because I'm focusing on a big piece that people are just ignoring. I'm not afraid to speak out about that. Like, I think it's really important that someone with our responsibility knows the ins and outs and maybe, or is at least thinking about it or working collective. Like in our office, we partner, Mike and I, we co-founded the Retirement Income Headquarters of America. And we partner with our partners, the financial guys. And in that office, it's a very team environment. And we work together. Not everyone there is certified in Social Security claiming strategies. But we work as teams. So if they have a client who does need my help, like it's collaborative. They're going to come and ask for my help to help me evaluate that particular situation. Honestly, I think other advisors are open to it. I wouldn't be kicked out of a firm per se. I think the people that get kicked out of firms are more self-serving and in it for themselves. But I guess that my hope would be that more advisors would feel compelled to be trained in this area because I really think it would serve clients better.
Yeah, it's huge.
We show a slide in our workshop that shows all the claiming ages. Okay, like when do people mostly claim? People always want to know, what do other people do? Most file at 62. So we joke around. We say, well, you'll get a letter. We look at it as an invitation, not an obligation to claim at 62. Some people, don't get me wrong, have to file then. And we're not proponents of early or late. We're just proponents of what is the best for your situation. But we think that many people, there's a big opportunity. If you looked at the distribution, you would see that there's a big opportunity for people to delay or defer. And we want to make sure that, we want to make sure that people are understanding their decisions.
Okay. I like that. So you touched on 62. We've touched on age. We've talked about this a lot in timing. And I know, at least my personal belief, just from where my life has taken me, is that I feel like I'm more likely to run out of health than money in terms of as long as I plan properly and all of that. Not that I have a lot of money, but I also just don't bank on health being there. So I know a lot of people don't say that out loud, but you guys really touched on something, and I think it was right at the beginning, and you touched on it again in the book, and it was another statistic that blew my mind, and it had to do about the statistic between life expectancy of men versus women. And if I'm correct, it was either 80 or 85% of men will die married.
80.
And 80% of men will die married. 80% of women will die unmarried, whether that's widowed. Yes. So,
and half of those that are widowed at age 65 will live another 15 years alone.
and that's crazy. And that's not even considering the other thing you talk about, which is family history of longevity.
Right.
Like I know my wife, her family, her grandparents, her grandmothers both lived in their 90s.
Right.
And that was people who grew up in the mid 1900s, the early 1900s. So I think about that all the time.
Yeah. So I like to say your health is your wealth. Of course, you're probably going to spend more the better you feel, right? There's an interesting study. It's known as the retirement spending smile. Wade Pfau, I believe, is who did the research. He's a PhD in this area, really smart guy. And basically what he found was, spending will trend down over a retiree's lifetime, but then it picks back up like a smile because healthcare inflation is higher than traditional inflation. If we're not feeling good or we're sicker, we're consuming more healthcare, which then becomes more costly, and we're spending now our money on that. But there's different approaches in terms of retirement income planning. There's a guardrail approach. That's another common one. There's the go-go, slow-go, and no-go years, like a phased approach. At the bare minimum, though, because some people they want to bake in discretionary spending in their income stream. Some people don't. They just want to kind of play it by ear, and that's okay. But there's this thing called the four walls, right? And that would be like your basic living expenses. So it's food, it's clothing, it's shelter, it's transportation. So expenses involving all four of those things. You're carving out anything discretionary. And then we build your income necessity off of that, right? So it looks different for everyone, but that's the bare bones spending that everyone does.
Have you, I believe I recall this in the book, or it's in a conversation you've had separately, so I don't want to misremember, but anyone who's waited too long but has still turned it around. Too long for retirement planning, too long. We hear people all the time. You see these posts, I'm 60 years old and I have $450,000 in 401k. And we don't have to use that exact example, but and maybe waiting too long is too nuanced. Like we each have a different, what does waiting too long mean? Mm-hmm. But in your general opinion, in a more just generalized sense, somebody who traditionally would have been waited too long, but you guys have helped them turn it around.
So I think this comes to, we show another slide in our workshop that we do when Americans, I can't remember the study it came from, but basically 77% of Americans are not on pace to meet their savings targets. Okay. That includes the equity in their own homes, which, by the way, that's usually not a planning strategy, unless it's like dire, right, that we embark upon. And I think that with proper planning, it's really a strategy problem, not a savings problem with many people. And these are the people that maybe have saved enough. Maybe they've saved $1 million or $1.2 million between the two of them, but they have a high spending goal. And they really are not looking like they're going to do well or make it through retirement how they want. And they're trying to make sacrifices. And this is a lot of people who we meet with. And we're fully independent. We have access to every investment product strategy out there, right? I like to say we're product agnostic, right? Because we're not tied to any one company specifically. And based on their claiming strategy and a proper retirement income plan, we've taken plans that looked like they were severely underfunded and have provided excess capital to them. And so it actually wasn't even a lack of them saving or doing things. It was just a horrible plan that they had in place, or one that they were not confident in, that we turned into something that they could believe in. That's pretty common with Social Security claiming strategies and focusing on those.
So it's less about I'm too late to the game. It's more repositioning the way I think. Like, why do I think I'm too late? Maybe I think I'm behind on savings or I'm behind on this, but maybe I'm just a little too aggressive in what I'll be spending. And
maybe not even that. Maybe it's just the strategy. It's ignoring Social Security, right?
Which I would. I honestly, if I were sitting down today having the conversation, I wouldn't even think about Social Security. I would either say it's going to be gone or it's not that much. And even if it's only $20,000, that's still almost $2,000 a month. Today's dollars. I can't imagine what that's going to be when I'm at retirement age.
Right. Exactly. So it's that's the most common scenario. And those are the people that might have their money managed, but they have no plan. And they just can't see how it'll work. They've run the numbers, but they're not running the right numbers.
Okay.
Right. So that's what I would say. And then, of course, I had the example that we talked about right at the beginning. The guy he was a stay-at-home dad and those types of things. But he did that on his own. It wasn't us. So I can't take credit for that.
But it's an example that somebody can turn it around.
Right.
You've still seen it.
It wasn't too late for him. Like he knew he just did the basic things. Spend less than you make. Save and invest. Right. And he was pretty savvy. He still needed our help though at the point of retirement income, how to put it all together, because he didn't feel like he saved enough. So back to this point. But it's not too late. It's very rarely ever too late.
That's good to know.
The worst thing is when we have, because I believe it's 80% of widows change financial advisors. And the reason why is because they're looking to salvage the plan that now they're stuck with. Because maybe you got to do it right at the beginning of retirement. Nothing worse than a widow trying to figure out, hey, how can I salvage the situation? Because now they lost a full Social Security income. They only have one. They both claimed early. That's pretty low, right? Maybe they burnt down a lot of their capital in retirement. They didn't know how much they could spend discretionarily. They weren't sure how all that worked. They didn't manage the risks appropriately, and now they're trying to squeeze blood from a stone. And those are the cases that are very difficult.
There's something in your book that made me really take pause emotionally and think, and it had to do with the story of a husband and wife. And the husband was looking at retirement, and he was looking at when he could retire. And you and Mike, after sitting down with him, it completely changed his mind because, and I'm just going to paraphrase here, when you showed him that it was more about than just him, it was them as a team, he was like, well, she raised our family and our children. I need to make sure it's more important that she's taken care of for the long term than I'm taking care of for the short term. And you helped them see that the short term, they're actually going to do great. And he completely changed his strategy. And you didn't tell him he had to. You just gave him the information for him to make it. And it was just hearing that, like, that was a huge shift in his mindset that he had all the way up until retirement age.
Right. Well, and there's timing strategies, like when spouses are different ages, maybe. Like, we don't always say both spouses claim at the same time. A lot of times one is waiting till 70 to get the biggest survivor benefit, and one files at 62. But again, it all comes down to the cost of retirement. And again, if there's multiple strategies that are feasible, that the plan will work, it's more of a qualitative decision. Like, how much do we want the survivor to have, right? But again, it's not a siloed thing. You got to look at it holistically.
One thing I want to come back to too is I was always under the perception you can earn yourself out of Social Security. And I'm now understanding it that on an annual or monthly basis you can, but if you make a lot of money in your career, if you're a high earner, that doesn't mean you cannot claim Social Security later in your life when you're no longer earning. Is that correct? That's
right. Yeah, you're paying into it. You max it out. You just get the biggest benefit possible. So I don't know if we're talking about two different things here, but there's that piece of it to where you make more than that $176,100 per year, and the rest, it maxes your benefit out.
Yeah, I more mean somebody makes, I don't know, it's an executive. They make $400,000 a year for the last 20 years of their life. They're probably very financially secure. Mm-hmm. To me, if I were ever in that position, I wouldn't even think about Social Security. I'd be like, oh, I made too much for a government benefit. At least that would be my mindset.
Yeah.
But I didn't. If I keep earning that, I'm not going to get it. But once I'm done earning that and I retire and I stop earning, that's still something that's available to me.
Well, they could. So you said executive, sometimes executives take a long time to retire. So they're in their 70s, or once they've hit full retirement age, they can claim their benefit while they're still working and have no reductions.
Wow.
You would never, ever wait until after age 70 to claim.
That's good to know.
Because the benefit just doesn't grow from there. And now you're truly missing out.
But if they're earning too much, then they can't, right?
They can. Yeah, there's no earnings test at full retirement age or later.
Oh, that's what I wasn't getting. Okay, so that is literally just money that you could be giving away if you don't plan properly or have somebody to help educate you.
Exactly.
Cool. So we're getting closer to the end here. I do want to do something. I want to go through a couple of just like quick questions, kind of lightning round stuff. If there's anything else you want to touch on, please let us know. But what's one thing you wish more 30-year-olds knew? Be just in general. It doesn't have to explicitly be Social Security, but it could be that as well.
That you want to find something that you are happy doing, because life is short.
Okay. I love that. What's a rule about money that you yourself break or have broken?
I'm pretty good with sticking to a budget, but I'm not super consistent with it.
Okay. I know you had given me some advice that still is advice I'm not used to getting, and I wanted to make a purchase of something, and it could have potentially impacted my future retirement, because I look at, if I'm 35 years old and I invest $20,000, what it could grow in 30 more years. But the comment you had made to me is, to reward yourself for your hard work, because if that helps you work 30 more years, it's a lot more important than sacrificing it, burning yourself out, and not making it the full way.
You have to balance the here and now with the future. You don't want to sacrifice your future for now, and you don't want to sacrifice now for your future, right? So there's a delicate balance there. And I see people retired all the time with a ton of wealth. They're never going to spend a dime of it because they're so frugal.
What a shame.
And they didn't spend their whole life. There's nothing wrong with being frugal. Like, that's good, but you have to live your life, you know. And again, for people like that, if you work with someone, it's someone like me that's encouraging you to do some of that spending. Like, because we're looking at the numbers, you know. And if you have numbers, then numbers don't lie, right? Unless that person's lying about them. but you know, people don't do that. So
last one I have for you. Best advice you ever got about time?
Probably from my dad. Time is short. When you're a kid, you don't realize it. And I remember, sorry, this is not lightning answer, but I remember going to see my grandparents, you know, as a tired teenager. And he goes, they're not going to be alive forever. And here I am, you know, 20 years later, they both have passed. And I'm very damn glad that I got to spend the time I did with my grandparents.
That's awesome. I've heard a lot of people talk lately about less about time and more amount of time. So like with grandparents, if I visit my grandmother 4 times a year and I think she's got 5 years left, I only have 20 more times of seeing her.
I've heard that too. And that really hits it home.
Puts it in perspective. And then I also think about when I was a kid, why did summer feel so long? Why did a year feel so long? When I'm 10 years old, 1 year is 1/10 of my life. At 50 years old, 1 year is 2% of my life. Like, just thinking about
That's
that.
true.
Like,
it's all relative.
Yeah, it's crazy. So something else that I like to do before we close out the show is I do something called flip the script. So you've done all the work this whole episode. You've answered the questions. What challenge would you leave me with and our audience with before our next episode? Something that we could share, that we could take away, do a little homework ourselves, and, you know, take something away from it that we could share with others around us.
Challenge everyone to actually sit down, and you don't have to work with anyone, but have a financial plan, because most people don't, and they're kind of living by the seat of their pants, and you owe it to yourself, to your family, to your future to actually get a plan implemented.
How long should you revisit, or how often should you revisit that plan at the bare minimum?
At least once a year.
Okay. And I mean, really, once you have it together, it shouldn't take that long to revisit it.
No, it doesn't. But, you know, life can change. Things happen. So, yeah, at least once a year, once it's established. But, yeah, everyone, you should always have a financial plan. Okay.
I know, just sitting down, even going back and thinking about all the areas I have debt, student loans, all the different areas where there might be some income, things that I'm like, I work at W-2, it's not that complex. And then you break it down, and it's far more complex than I ever thought it was, because I never took the time to actually sit and digest all of the different nuances around it.
That's right.
Cool. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we close this out? Where can people, well, first off, where can people find the book?
Yeah, it's at beyondbreakevenbook.com. There's the audio version. There's actually a free copy, a PDF version, flipbook version. So right to that website there to access that. Our website is incomeplanhq.com. If any questions financial planning related can be directed to me. I'm happy to just answer them for anybody. Always am. And that's pretty much it. That's where we can be found, and this is the work we do.
Cool. I'll share all those links out. I appreciate that. Today really reminded me that retirement is less about age. It's a lot more about options. And you said optionality, use that word a lot. It's more about freedom. Mm-hmm. You know, we always say, you know, retirement, it's our finish line, but it's not finish line. It's a freedom move, especially if you can maintain your health into it. But if you're still following the rules from back in the 1980s, you're probably planning for a life that doesn't exist anymore. So I really appreciate that. And Russ, just like last closing thought from yourself, what is one life rule that you live by that, you know, you could pass on to our next guest to reflect on?
You know, you have to get 1% better every day, right? You know, you think of a big goal, you think of something you really want to accomplish. It didn't happen overnight for people. And so any big goal, you know, and I want people to achieve their goals. Like, it seems like a mountain, just 1% better. Just strive forward every day. So just think about that, like 1%, because you're going to be in the grind, and that can detract you from actually achieving something.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Our last guest was about self-reflection, and her and I shared something because we have a rule in our household that you're not allowed to bitch about something unless you're doing something to change it. So if you want to complain about being overweight, you're not allowed to get airtime in the house unless you're working out or you're dieting. You need to be actively doing something.
Yeah, that's good.
So that was what she had left with, is that self-reflection and always like remeasuring against whatever your situation is.
Yeah, that's true.
So we like to share these. We like everybody to leave us with a little bit of life advice.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. I do want to say next time on Breaking Dogma, we're actually going to be talking about the myth that AI and emerging technology is what the problem is today in business.
I love AI.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people do, but the technology is not the problem. It's really the way leaders are using it that are failing us,
Yeah,
and a lot of the mindsets and a lot of those logical fallacies that we see in business. So that'll be the next episode that we have. But I can't thank you enough for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.